Okay, we're back, and I gave you a bit of a challenge. I know it's more of a challenge for some people than it should be because their Git isn't installed properly on their systems. There's some issues with that. So worst case scenario, what do? You can always go to the websites. That's why I use Bower for my dependency manager, but worst case, if I wanted to get all my Bootstrap, I can go to getbootstrap.com, right? That's why you have to do the long way, getbootstrap.com. Go to download Bootstrap and put it inside your lib folder, right? So if I download Bootstrap, what do I get? I can choose this one with not the source code, but this one here. And I'm going to get a Bootstrap 3.36, this one. This is the latest version. I've already downloaded Bootstrap 3.35. It says dist, if you notice, right? Just to show you what that looks like. So let's go into my downloads. Hopefully they're not dirty downloads today, right? Sometimes I have other stuff in there. Today I don't. So notice how it has CSS and JavaScript. If you were to take this and put it into a dist folder, so if I was to change this this Bootstrap folder to a dist folder, like dist, right, as an example, and that's okay. You could put all the your Bootstrap stuff inside there, this CSS fonts and JavaScript, and then throw this into your folder, into your public lib folder. So even if Bower won't allow it, you can still do it, okay? Same thing with jQuery. So of course for jQuery, you'd have to go to jQuery.com, right, and grab your stuff locally there. Download jQuery. You want to get the latest one, 2.1.4. And again, you download it and put those files, a reference to your jQuery files, inside your public lib folder. Just manually, you do it that way. For Angular, it's the same thing. If you go to angularjs.org and you want to download Angular, you can click on download, right, which will take you to what you want to download. You want to definitely not do this one, not 1.5. You want to go with 1.4x, the stable one. Notice how it says Bower install Angular 1.48. You can just download. If you click download, it'll just download the modules you want inside your minified or uncompressed zip, depending on what you want. Right? Sorry? NPM is slightly different. I wouldn't recommend using NPM because of the way you reference things with Angular and NPM. If you can use NPM as well, but I'd rather you use a front-end manager for front-end stuff, right? You can also browse for additional modules. Notice how there's other ones like Angular. If you wanted to do just manually, I asked you for Angular root.min.js and Angular resource. Those are the two that you should download, so you can grab those remotely as well. Plus the map files. Make sure you get the map files as well, so you can browse for these. This is in one long list of stuff, right? So that's the other way. And you can do this manually and drag and drop these files into your public lib and then call it what it is, Bootstrap or Angular or jQuery, to organize your files manually that way. Okay, that's the other way. Same thing with Font Awesome. One thing I didn't say is Font Awesome, so it'll be the same, Font Awesome. You can go down here and download your stuff for Font Awesome. Click download, and you can download your toolkit for Font Awesome and put it inside of a public lib Font Awesome folder, and then you can reference it that way. All right. If you can't use again, Bower for any means. But Bower, as you can see, is pretty handy, right? If you did it properly, it's clickety-click and everything's there. You don't have to go to all these websites manually to do that. So let's show you the way I would have it. So now that I have everything, I'm assuming whether you get Bower, use Bower, or whether you do it manually, you still got to do what I'm going to do now. So let's get that done. All right, so I said in my a couple files, in my Bootstrap file, my boot.ejs file, which is right here, I want you to put in all the stuff for Bootstrap, right? So I'm going to go to my footer, and I'm going to grab this stuff in for Bootstrap, right, and cut it out. So I want all this stuff out of here, and save, and go into my boot.ejs and paste. Now, notice that it has CDN versions of Bootstrap. I told you I don't want those. And by the way, notice how also I'm getting plain text here because it's EJS. I can just click here in Visual Studio Code and go up to HTML and make it an HTML file. So I get some HTML code hinting in here because I don't want to do this by hand, right? And I want to realign the jQuery file and the Bootstrap file so it's local. And I know that they're inside my public lib Bootstrap dist CSS or JS for JavaScript, right? Bootstrap.min. So that's what I have to do here. So I'm going to go, instead of public lib, because I know public is in my root because it's inside my app.js, it's been added to the path, I don't have to put my public folder in there at all, right? So that's the first thing. So I'm going to go lib, right? bootstrap, and then dist, and then JS. That's what has to happen there for bootstrap, right? And I put it in the wrong place, of course. Let's just copy this piece in here, because that would be bad if I put that in for jQuery. And then for jQuery, right, I'd have to put in the same thing. Lib, instead of bootstrap, it'd be jQuery. Now jQuery I don't think has a dist. Let's see. For jQuery, it goes jQuery. Oh, it does have a dist, and then right into there's no JS though, because it's all JS, right? So it would have to be one of those jQuery 2.1.4, right? And that's it. All you need for jQuery and Bootstrap for that one. Yeah. Sorry. The 2.1.4 is no good. Yeah, because that would be specifying a version in my jQuery that says .min.js. So that's correct, right? And now if I go into, so this is what I'm going to put. My boot.ejs is going to just have these two. Let's fix my header now, and I'll go to my ng-lib later, right? So in my header, I've got these references to stuff. I'm going to redo this from plain text into HTML. There we go. And we'll do the same thing here. That's kind of long, so I'll kind of reduce this over here. And I know the pathing because it's, instead of Bootstrap 3.3.5, it's not that at all. It is lib dist, sorry, Bootstrap, okay. Instead of this 3.3.5, it's dist, right? CSS bootstrap.min. And the same thing goes with up there. Actually, I just copied this whole line. That's just far easier. And go to -theme.min.js. And for font awesome, it's slightly different. It's just fontawesome.css. Let's make sure that I'm correct because I don't want to have a problem, right? So I go to back up to here, so it looks like referencing to font awesome and then CSS, right? Font awesome CSS. So back here, grab all this, lib, font awesome. Get rid of this link, CSS, font awesome min.css, right? That's cool. This one stays the same, style sheets, because that's already in its own. Notice how this has a /, and that gets me to think that I probably need a / in front of my lib, right? So let's put that in, right? Because style sheets has it, and it's inside my public folder. Lib should have it, and that means I have to correct my other files. So I go back here, and I'm going to go to my boot and put in a / in front of my lib, right? That's what I'm thinking. Let's see if that works. My footer is just this, right? I got my boot. Now I need to add my ng stuff, and I know it's going to be in this format, so I might as well take this and copy it into my ng lib here. And I'm going to call this, we're going to call this Angular libraries. And let's switch this from plain text into HTML. So we get some code hinting in there. So instead of lib.jQuery, it's going to be lib.angular. Angular. And I know that. But then if I go Angular, it's going to be Angular and then Angular.min.js. Right? So there's no dist for this one. And again, whether you download it and do it yourself or you still have to put something in there. So Angular, I want Angular. I wanted Angular root, and I want Angular resource because I'm going to need this today. So Angular, so this would be Angular-root, and then -root. And this would be Angular-resource, and then Angular-resource. Okay, and then you know what? In here, I'm also going to put in a reference to a file I don't have, right? Because I need some kind of control module, and I'm going to reference that with app.js, right? So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say these are my application. I didn't ask you to do this, but I'm doing it now since we're doing it, right? These are my application scripts, right? Specific for my application, nothing to do with Angular, right? And I can put in the same thing. So I'll say script, and I'll put in a source for that script, which I'll make it so that it's inside my public folder. So it's just going to be called app.js. I don't need to go into a folder for that one. I don't have that yet. Might as well add it. So I'm going to go into my app.js, in my public folder, right? In your public folder, add in a new file. As a placeholder, we're going to add in called app.js, which we're going to change to TS later on. All right, let's go back to that nglib.ejs. We got this piece, right? So Angular libraries, my application scripts are there, but they're only going to be in place for my Angular stuff, not for my entire application. If I try and make it for my entire application, I'm in trouble, guys, right? Because I'm going to load in extra information that I don't need, right? Okay. And by the way, one of the reason why I made you do this is because from an exercise perspective, you should understand, right? You should understand how to reroute and kind of rejig your whole thing, right? Okay, for now, what I want you to do is in the views folder, I want you to create another, actually, let's go and fix the views. So we know that in my register, we'll start with register. Register, I have my header is okay because I'm having my CSS and stuff included in there. But my footer is not okay anymore, right? Why? Because my footer is just the bottom part of my footer, which is just the closing HTML tag and the body tag, right? So I need to add something before there. This is stuff I didn't ask you to do because this has been too much work for you to do on your own in this little exercise space. We need something called boot.ejs, right? That's our new boot, thing for Bootstrap. So I know that this is what I need, so I might as well just copy this line and go through my login, put it there for Bootstrap, a little bit of reworking. But we need to do that so that way we have more flexibility for our app. My index. My area I don't have to touch. In users, I have to do it, but I have to be very careful because users has a different pathing from my footer, right? So I'm going to kind of put in there. Notice how I have to go up one step for this one. My boot. Now I'll copy this one and do it for my edit. And my add. Here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to test my Angular yet. I want to test my app so that I've done all these changes, that it works like normal. That's the first thing I'm going to check. We do micro steps. We use an iterative process of testing. I make a change, I test my changes, then I add. I don't do everything at once. Otherwise, I'm like, what happened? How come my changes they all mess me up, right? All right, so now that I've changed all my views, right, that I need, and my partials, I didn't include nglib anywhere yet, but I will, right? Let's test out my applications. I'm going to go back to terminal, right? After I've installed all my modules and everything else, I should be able to do something like this without an error, right? And I haven't changed anything on the back end, just the front end stuff, EJS files, and also my dependencies, right? And let's go back into my folder here, right? The files that I'm using here, and refresh. And let's see, hopefully we get everything. Yeah, see, this is good because now we're getting back the CSS files. Let's look at my terminal and see what it gives me. Notice how it goes lib, bootstrap, dist.js, bootstrap.min.js, which means it's pointing to the right folder, right? If it wasn't pointing to the right folder, I wouldn't get any of my CSS working. Now I know it's working because that's what it's returning here in my view, right? I can tell. I'm getting back feedback from my console telling me I'm good, right? So I don't have to do it. I'm good. I'm happy with this change. I'm going to push it to GitHub now. So I'm going to go back here. I got 11 changes. I'm going to click this, add them all, go to GitHub and say updated partials, EJS partials. Reference new libraries. Okay, and then I'm going to click this here and push. And now you should have all my changes up on GitHub. So if you missed something, you can always go there and check out the stuff that I have on GitHub. You can follow along that way. Wow, lots of prep for us to get ready. But we need to do this stuff because we can't do any of this. We can't start doing Angular until we have our own little view to do it with, right? So to skip this, moving forward, let's go back into here. Yes? You have to go up a step. So notice how inside my if I go into my users and if I go to index.ejs, I have to go up a step like this. Oh, no, that'll still work because /lib is inside your public folder. Huh? Right, so that's how I'm working right now. Yeah, I've done it already. Look, oh, you mean for my user view? Oh, okay. Okay, let's see if that works. You're correct. So I'm logging in, right? And I have to log in to get that view first. Yeah. That would be a problem, wouldn't it? It would have a problem. See? And if I go in here into NodeMon, you can see that it's going to style.css, no problem. It's going into lib, bootstrap, dist, and all this stuff for the JavaScript, and even for my font awesome CSS, it's going through all that. What's that? Sure. Sure. So let's add Thor at marvel.com, and we'll make his username Thor, and his password is 1234556, and display name is Thor. Let's make sure his username is lowercase Thor. Submit. Download my version from GitHub. Yeah. Okay. I'm so sorry that you get that 404 error, but the way to do it is just make sure mine looks like yours. And okay, I'll come around later during a break and see what the problem is. Huh? You want a break? If I don't tunnel through, you guys won't get Angular. If you want to take a break, 5 minutes, I'll keep recording. Go. If you need to take a break, smoke, whatever, go. No, because I want to download your stuff. I got errors on mine. Download my stuff, and then I'll rifle through, right? If you need to take a break, this session is packed. Like I said, this is like my potential last teaching session. Looks like I might have to go and do more next week, but only because I want to help you. In here, what I want to do is, now that I know that this is all working and it's working fine and I've uploaded everything, I need to add a view that we can play with, right, for now. And now I know I'm going to make a to-dos list, right, a to-dos list. And I know I want to add another view, right, and I have to get there somehow, right? So I need a route for my view. So I don't have a route, can't get to it, right? That's the first thing I need to do. So one, I need to get there somehow, and I need to have some kind of receiving, some kind of a receiver for my view. So how do I do that? So right-click, I'm going to add a new view in Views. For now, I'm going to leave it in the main folder. We can reroute it later because we can rejig it, right? To-do list.ejs, and we'll make it all lowercase. To-do list.ejs. My to-do list.ejs is going to use my header. Right? So I'm going to include my header and my footer. And again, to get that information, I can look at one of these files like login, and I'll get my, for this one, put it in here. And I'll do the same thing. I'll get my boot and footer, right? Put it into my to-do list. I have to have that, right? And I also need the new one, right? Which is after Bootstrap and before my footer, I'm going to put in my new one, which is going to be my ng-lib, right? So instead of boot.ejs, you're going to go to ng-lib.ejs because that's a partial, right? The new partial that I've kind of put together, right? ng-lib, which is just this stuff here, right? Okay, we need to get there. Even though I have a view, right? Who cares? I need to get to this to-do list somehow. How do you recommend we get to it? If I want to go type to-do list, and forget about logging in for a second. I want to get to to-do list. How do I get to to-do list? How do I add that route in? Where do I add it in? Routes, right? Let's go into my routes. Now I have a users and index. For now, let's add a link to my to-do list inside my index.js. Hear me now, because there's a different, it's going to be a different link than the routes to-dos.js. That's a different thing we're going to put in there, right? The to-dos.js file is going to house our links so that it sends up JSON data, not routing data, okay? Routing data is what we've been used to, this stuff here, right? So if I go back to the bottom, and if I notice that there's a process logout request or whatever, I'm not going to put it. I'm not going to make it look like this. It's got to look something like a render page, like a get page, like this. So I'm going to kind of copy this, maybe the registration view or some other simpler view, and I'm going to go down to the bottom before my module.exports and put it in there. Okay. And notice how it says register. Well, it's not going to be register. I'm going to put in to-do list. Right. So if I put in to-do list like that, then it'll take me to to-do list. Right. Well, how does it do that? It says res render to-do list is what it's going to say. Right. To-do list. And let's you know, kind of put in something like to-dos as a title. Right. I'm not going to put in a flash message because there's not going to be any errors in here. But I am going to request a display name. And it says, if user's there, then cool. Otherwise, redirect back to my main file. And what that means is if you're not logged in, you can't see the to-do list you know, page at all. That's what it's doing, right? If I don't have this display name, it means I can't get to it. It's going to reroute me, right? Just like it would if I was trying to log into a specific page, right? Okay, so that's the one thing I need to do. And notice that there is no other pathing necessary right at this point, right? But I don't have my page. My page is pretty darn empty, right? So if I go back to, if I save this one, and I go back to my to-do list.ejs, I need to put something in here to kind of let everyone know that we're here, right? So let's put in some kind of information. So we'll make an h1 tag for now. Sorry, let's go back from plain text into HTML. And we'll go in there and we'll say to-do list, right? And if everything goes well, if I go to my to-do list and everything else, I should be fine. So by now, NodeMon should have restarted, which it did, right? Because I've rejigged my my server.js and sorry, my app.js file. And if I go back to here and refresh, it should ask me to log in again, right? Because it kicks me out every time I restart my server, right? So right here, and then 1, 2, 3, and log in. I didn't put the correct password in. Good. Now I don't have a link to to-do list yet, right? I have it takes me to users, that's fine, but I don't have a link, so I have to put it in manually. How would it look? It's got to be like this, right? It's got to be to-do list, like lowercase, right? And if you know, if it's good, if it exists, it's going to take me into that link, right? So if I go to-do list by itself, to-do list, right, and enter, right, it should take me there. How come it doesn't take me there? What's the other thing? Am I missing anything else, right, that you guys can see that I'm missing? So I got to go there somehow. I got to go into to-dos list and everything else. Let's see what I get on my NodeMon, right? Because this is important to see what I get here, right? So it says to-do list gives me a 200, right? Which means where it's found. It starts loading stuff in. It starts loading lib.bootstrap.dist, my min, all this stuff in here. It starts loading my style sheet. It starts loading jQuery. Starts loading what should we call it? My Bootstrap. And then what it wants to load is all my map files, right? But I start getting into the other piece, and the other stuff isn't loading. Look, it just stops here. So I went to here. This is my, you know, my trace, right? And then it says to-do list is a 302, right? So first it found to-do list as a 302. What's a 302? Here's login as a 302, right? Here's my get users. Get my get is good, but look how get doesn't have something in front of it. Get my, and it says get users. Doesn't do that. And here I get a problem, right? Doesn't do anything. Doesn't render anything. So because it's not rendering anything, right? It's kicking me out. How come? Let's go back to my pathing. That's an important thing to look at. So if I go back to my routing, which is in my index, notice how over here, when I do my main page, I just render it and I check for it, but I don't route myself back, right? So I check to see if it's there. Here, I actually check to see if my user, if not user, right? If I don't have a user, then I have a problem, and somehow it's not seeing my user. So to come around that, let's just take this piece out for now to test it with that. Right, so I'm doing troubleshooting here. I'm trying to figure out what's the problem, right? So, because it should go there, because to-do list, if I put this in to-do list, then I should be able to get my to-do list, which is in my partials, sorry, my views, to-do list. There it is, right here, right? So that's the first thing. And I'm not getting that. I'm not even rendering it at all. This is the rendering piece, the get, right? And it's not my registration page. It's my to-do list page, right? If I can't get to my to-do list, I can't do any Angular, right? So this is the first piece. And again, I'm gonna keep paring this down until all I have is my title going in there, right? Yeah.
I understand, because the statement was
If my request user doesn't exist, then reroute back to my. So somehow it didn't pick it up.
no, it says if it doesn't exist, it says nothing.
If it doesn't exist, yeah, that's bad. That would be bad. That's why it didn't work, right? Because I had it was the wrong thing. I should have put if exists, then render the to-do list, right? Otherwise, reroute me back. So let's just do it this way, and that's why I'm just paring it down because I copied and pasted a random get, right? So I'm just trying to show you how it works. Okay, so now that I've did that, it's restarted. If I go back up here and refresh, I got to log in again, right? Because I'm not logged in, right? So I go, da-da-da. And then log in, takes me to this page. I don't have a link yet, and I'm going to go in here and go to-do list. Good, right? We have my to-do list now. Now let's take a look and see what I see on my terminal. Okay, so I've got my Bootstrap, my Font Awesome, my style sheets. Now I get some jQuery, some Bootstrap again. I loaded my Bootstrap files, and then I've got my Angular route, and my Angular resource, and my app.js, which is the one that's going to control everything. This is good. It means I'm loading my files up properly. I'm loading up my files. So physically now, I have a front end that I can use all my Angular training, all the stuff we did in code school. I have a place where it can go now, right? So what's the first thing? When we added I want to bootstrap, if you will. I want to bootstrap my Angular. I haven't done that, and I got to do that in my app.js file. How do I bootstrap my Angular so that it's manual bootstrapping, not the one you saw in code school? Remember we did it last week? Do you guys remember? Probably not. So let's do this manually again together. All right? I need to manually bootstrap. Why? Because if I include ng app in my header, that means I have to go. There's two ways I can do it. I can do that, automatic bootstrapping, and add another head file, head EJS partial, that all it does is decide which one to put in, right? Which would be bad, right? And lots of complication involved with that. Or I can go into my app.js, which is just created here inside my public folder. Let's close up my server for now. In my public folder, this is the first time we're actually declaring my my Angular module and everything to do with Angular, right? So let's start typing. So I'm going to say var my main module name, right? So my main module name, right, is equal to app. Let's call it app, right? That's the first thing we want to do it. And I'm not getting any code hinting, right? Because I'm not using TypeScript. So now I got to think about it. Do I want to use TypeScript to help me with Angular? And the answer is absolutely, because I'm going to get some code hinting that I haven't got code hinting up to now, which kind of sucks. So that means I need some extra stuff in my module, and I'll upload GitHub with this stuff so you have it all. So I'm going to go in here on the root, right? New file, which I've got a tsconfig file. We did this piece before, where I'm going to press control space. How about tsconfig.json? How about that? tsconfig.json file, right? I'm going to do control space to add in my my compiler options for TypeScript. I'm going to go in here and add a map, all my map files. I want to add all them in, right? So I'm going to go source maps is equal to true, right? This is all review from like a couple of weeks now. We've been doing this every week, right, with TypeScript. So now that I've added my my tsconfig file, I need to add a task runner. Remember we did this whole task runner stuff? And there's some tricks to do with Windows to make it work, because especially on the local computers in front of you, you can also do it on the command line. You have to have TSC, which is TypeScript, available in the command line for all this to work, right? And again, you can follow the other videos we did to get that done. But let's go in here and go right-click, Shift Control B, or on the Mac, Shift Command B, to kind of kick off our little task runner, right? So we're going to add a task runner. I don't need any of this stuff, right? and kill this. And I don't need any of this stuff underneath here. You can kill all that. And again, for people who are watching because they don't have this stuff available to them, give me a second and I'll upload everything to GitHub. Right, so I'm just preparing stuff for for TypeScript so we can get some code hinting. And I'm going to get rid of all this because we don't want a hello world. We want to just get the regular stuff. I've got my task runner working. Good. Cool. Let us check it out with my, I'm only going to put it on my app.js file that we're using, which is within my public file. This app.js, I'm going to make another, I'm going to rename it to app.ts, right? And I'm going to just, in order for us to use Angular and have some code hinting, I need to add in my typings, right? So let's add them in. So I'm going to stop running this one. I'm going to go, remember I'm going to use TSD for typing. So I'm going to say TSD install Angular minus my save. So that way my typings are there for my type definition libraries so we can get code hinting. I'll do the same thing for Angular-route minus my save. So we're going to need that for routing, Angular routing. And same thing with Angular resource. So I can get Angular resources, code hinting as well. It's all that in there. I don't need it, but maybe I will in the future. I can add in all my stuff for Express if I want to TypeScript my Express. I'm not going to do it in this stage because all I want is code hinting for Angular right now. If I went to Express and Node, we'd just be here for another 2 or 3 hours, right, until I get everything running. Okay, so for now we're good. We've got all the piece parts we need. One more thing, just in case, is I may want to add things for Bootstrap if I wanted to add in some, a custom code for Bootstrap. I don't need it, but I'm putting it in there anyway. Oh, TSD install. How about install would be good, Tom? And the same thing goes with jQuery by itself. TSD install jQuery. Although I don't need it, right? Just putting it in there. Okay, cool. So I've got all my type definition libraries. One thing that I always like to do is inside my public, I want to reference my to have one reference file on the top to make sure it all works, right? I'm going to right-click and add a new file in here called _reference.ts. And my reference.ts file is going to reference my typings, my tsd.d.ts file, this one, right? Which is inside typings, which I've got to go, because I'm in my reference, I've got to go up one to the root and down into typings and then down into tsd.d.ts. That's the root. Don't worry, I'll send this up to GitHub for people who are watching. So I got to do that. So inside my reference.ts, I'm going to say 3// reference path equals to, and the path of my reference. I'm going to go up one, right, down into typings, right, and then down into tsd.d.ts, and then close that path off. So that's the actual reference path. And why am I doing that? Because then I only need one reference path in the top of my Angular file, and I don't have to worry about my typings. I can make sure that they're there, right? Now inside my app.ts file, which is up here, before I do any Angular stuff, in the top, I'm going to reference my typings. I'm going to say reference path is equal to, and now it's just simple. It's _reference.ts. I'm good. Right? So now I've got my references for all my modules, right? And if you notice, to know that TypeScript is working, I see that I get a kind of a type inference here that says that main module it must be a string, right? Because if I hover over, it's good. So I'm getting code hinting for JavaScript. Now let's see if I can get code hinting for Angular. And the first thing, before I do anything, I'm just going to transpile for a second, right? Just so that it converts all my files, my TypeScript, my references. It converts my my app.ts to app.js, which I will show you in another window, just so you can see the differences. There's app.js, app.ts. And now I can start typing my Angular stuff. So I'm going to say var Angular, or app, is equal to Angular. There it is. There's my code hinting. Angular dot, right, module, right? And I'm going to name my module, right? And it's going to be the name of my module, which is main module name, right? Main module name. comma, and then I don't have any dependencies right now, so that's all I would need. If I kind of transpile now, you can see that the JavaScript side just takes on almost the exact same stuff. I'll transpile. Command-Shift-B on the Mac. Control-Shift-B on Windows, and you have to set up your task runner. So I've done a lot. Let's go into GitHub and add all these changes. I made 17 changes to GitHub, but wait. Do I need to make, do I want to put my typings, right, up on GitHub? Do I want to do that? Well, if I go back to my file, I go back to my gitignore file, I may want to add typings as something that I don't want in here. So typings. So that means you'd have to do a TSD install to download my files now, right? That's the thing with it. So I'm going to add typings in there. So it reduces the number of changes. And then I'm going to say added TypeScript support. And then I'll push all that up. So you should have all those changes with a task runner and everything up there. The only thing you want to have is my typings, which you can just run on the command line tsd space install, and it'll install all the typings for you. So instead of me doing it manually. Okay, cool. So I've got this stuff working. Let's go into this piece here, and I want to go back into my app.ts file. This is the first piece that I need for my Angular manual bootstrapping. What's the next piece I need? Does anyone remember? It's right from last week's lesson. You guys can go to last week's lesson if you want. Pull it up. So, as I pull this up with this stuff here, just make sure I don't misstep here. I'm going to add in an Angular, I'm going to kind of call Angular element, right? So I'm going to say Angular.element, right? I'm going to look at the document, right? I'm going to wait for the document to be ready. That's what this is basically saying. And then what I want to do is I want to use an anonymous function, right? That inside my anonymous function, I want to write that bootstrapping module. So what this piece here is, it says, and this is the Angular way of doing it, it says wait for the document to be ready. Wait until the document loads. That's what it does. I'm waiting for the document to load. And you could also use regular jQuery. jQuery, so $ document.ready, and then a function, right? It's the same thing. I'm just using the Angular version, right? So once it loads, then you want to use your next command, which is angular.bootstrap. Remember this one? And you want to call what element you're going to bootstrap to, which is the whole document, and then the name of your module in square brackets. So main module name. That, my friends, is all you need to bootstrap Angular manually. So this is manually bootstrapping. So I'll say here, so instead of putting ng app like we did in code school, this is the way we do it here because our app is tied into an Express backend, and we don't want to bootstrap every one of them as an app, right? Every page. So there's two pieces to it. One, we've separated the JavaScript libraries inside a separate nglib.ejs file so that they're not loaded up, only for Angular files. And at the same time, we're only going to bootstrap the files that load that file up with my app.js. So when it loads app.js, it bootstraps onto the, it adds it onto the to that particular view. All right, so this is manual bootstrap, manually bootstrap Angular. Okay, so that's two pieces right there, right? And to test that out, right, I'm gonna transpile just to make sure that those changes were in effect. I'm gonna go back to and save. I'm gonna go back to my little view, which is my to-do list, my to-do list.ejs file, which is right somewhere down here. There it is. And inside my to-do list, let's put it inside, to test Angular, I want to put in some kind of expression, right? If the expression works, we know that Angular has been installed. So my expression will be something like, Tom is, right? And then plus, we'll do some concatenation, right? Getting a little tired. Tired of talking. tired of talking, right? Okay, so that's kind of what I want to print out, and I want to put that. I want to encapsulate all that in a paragraph tag. So let's just use that and kind of put all this in the paragraph tag. I think it's option up. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so that's what's going to go in my paragraph tag. Tom is getting a little tired of talking. If Angular works, and you know what? I might as well use some Bootstrap stuff. So I'm going to say, here's a div tag with a container class. I'm going to put in this stuff inside. So I'm going to take all this, highlight it, and then use Option or Alt on the hold Alt down or Option on the Mac, and just kind of move it up, right? Move that whole block in there. And then I'm going to right click and just format my code so it's nicely aligned, right? And what I want to do now is transpile one more time to make sure that it's all good. I'm going to go back into my terminal here and run nodemon, right? Go back into here and refresh. And it should take me back to this. Right? Tom is getting a little tired of talking. The only way I can get Tom's a little tired of talking is if I've manually bootstrapped my Angular in the first place. Unless I attach Angular to it, I don't have a controller yet, but unless I attach Angular to it, I can't write an expression, right? So this is the first test that I have to make sure that my Angular is working, okay? Questions so far? Anyone have other issues here when it comes to this? Yes, Amanda. This? Or do you want to? Oh, my tsconfig. It should be up on GitHub now. Anyone else have any questions? What did I do here? So this, remember the double mustache? Ari, welcome. Double mustache is an expression for Angular, right? It's an expression. It's an expression for Angular, right? Mustache. So that's what this does. If you don't have, if Angular wasn't bootstrapped or added on to my my view, my to-do list.ejs, this wouldn't work. I would just get this back, right? And to note this, if you want to check this out, to see how this, what I'm talking about is, if I go to my app.js, which is the one I was working in, inside of my public folder, so here's my app.ts file, and to not bootstrap it, I just have to, kind of, I'm just going to kind of comment it out, right? Commenting it out, and then I'm kind of transpiling again. Notice how my server restarted, but when I go back to here and refresh, right, I see that Tom is getting a little tired, but I see the mustaches. This tells you, this is a proof that Bootstrap or Angular has not been bootstrapped onto my app, right? So if it's not bootstrapped, if it's not added on, my expressions don't function. So if you ever get this when you're writing Angular stuff, you know something's not right. Your Angular's not connected. That's the first thing. The other thing to look at a lot is if I right-click, I can look at my my console here, because this is all front-end stuff. So if I get a console error, I would be getting console errors with this view, because this is not a back-end view. The back-end view is when you do a console.log, it goes into your console, like your actual terminal window here. If I do a console log for my back-end view on my server with using Express. But when I do console logs on the front end, it'll go here inside my browser, because it's a front end. It has nothing to do with the back end, right? And an example of that would be if I go back here and I put this back, and I can say something like, after this, right? Some kind of console.log, Angular added to app, right? Or Angular app initialize. Let's see how TypeScript is helping me even with my console.log. Caught that little error. I'm just a TypeScript guy though, so don't just ignore me. Let's go back here and refresh, and you can see that I get my to-do list is fixed, but or my title for it is fixed, but my Angular added to app is added in the console that I would normally think about getting, just like I have any other HTML file, right? So we're back to that like we were last week. Right, that's just one piece. Now, let's add in a controller, because I know I want to have my to-dos, right? And my to-dos, first of all, in order for me to have a to-do list, there's some stuff I need to prepare, right? I need a schema for my to-do list. All that stuff that we did last time, when it comes to my user, I need to do all again for my to-do list, because I'm going to use Mongo to hold my to-do list in place, right? I'm trying to help you, by the way, with assignment 3. I'm just prepping you for assignment 3, which you do next week, right? So how do we do that? Let's go back here. In my server, I have index.js and a users.js. This is okay, but I need another model. My new model has got to be todos.js, something like that, right? And my model it's going to be a new schema that I'm going to be using with Mongoose. Back to that, right? So let's add a new file in my models that I'm going to call just todo.js. I've got my to-do model and I got my user model, right? I got to put the same kind of stuff in there that we had before. So I'm going to say var mongoose, right? Just like we did before, because it's still a mongoose module. This is back to Node again. Is require mongoose. I need to have that in there. I also have to have a schema. Remember we did a schema, which says schema is equal to mongoose.schema. I'm not getting any code hinting here because I don't have Node installed in or Express as part of my TypeScript. I'm not asking for TypeScript to do code hinting for me for this one. And notice I've created a JS file, not a TS file. TS for TypeScript, JS for JavaScript. I'm not doing that here. I'm just making a regular JavaScript file again. Var, and we're going to say my to-do schema then, right, is equal to a new schema, right, which is going to, I'm going to pass in my object with, the other thing in the bottom of my object is I need to pass in something else of a new collection. So I'm going to say my collection, just at the bottom here, is actually equal to to-dos. That's my new collection, right? My collection can't be the same as before, otherwise I would have a problem, right? And I'm also going to do, just before I start typing the other stuff in, my module.exports has got to be in there to say, well, it's equal to mongoose, right, dot model. And in there I'm going to pass in my to-do, that's what it's going to be called, with my to-do schema, right? So that all is normal. That's stuff that we've seen before with our user schema, right? In fact, I could have gone to my user schema and stole those pieces and put it in. So I need some of this back, some of this stuff. I don't need this stuff because I'm not logging in. So my schema here for my Mongo collection is going to be slightly different. So I need a name, which is going to be a string, the name for my to-do. I need some way of knowing that it's completed, so I'm going to put in completed, which is going to be a Boolean, right? And I need another thing. I need a username. I'm going to keep track of my username because, and maybe you want to. This is optional for you. I put a username in there because I want to know what user is logging in, right? For you, you don't have to go there. All you need, my schema includes a username. Your schema can only have a note, right? And the note is going to be a string, right? And the other thing I'm going to put in here is when is it updated? So updated, that's going to be something I want, right? And I want to put in a little an object here, which is the type is going to be date, right? And my default, right, is going to be date.now. That's kind of a shorthand of making it a little object of its own. It's going to listen for a date object. As code that you can use for your assignment 3, right? So this is your to-do schema for the database. So I need that, right? I need to put all those pieces in place like I would normally put in. Otherwise, I don't have that stuff, right? So for my model, it has to be included. And notice I wrote it here, but remember in our app.js, the one that's not part of our Angular app, this is our app.js for our Express app. The Express app has all this stuff, right? Did I ever put in my schema in here for anything, ever, right? No, it's inside of my other stuff, inside users or whatever, or my passport, right? That's where I put my schema. So I don't have to put it in here, right? What I will need is, if I want to have my route set up for my schema, for me to do Angular routing, I need to put that, I need to put a reference of that in here, right? So I need to put that in. I don't have that yet, but I might as well prepare. So I'm going to kind of, in my app.js, which is on my Express side, my server side, right? I'm going to put that in there. So I'm going to say, instead of users, I'm going to change this to to-dos, right? And it's going to require server routes, which I don't have yet, to-dos, right? What else do I have to put in? Let's go back down here and take a look. I have my again, my app use routes. I also have my app users, in my users folder, right, I'm going to probably need something of a to-dos folder, right, for my structure as well, right? For now, let's leave this alone. But let's come up here for a second and see what I need to put in for my to-dos. So this is under routes. I need a to-dos routes. Even if I put it in as a placeholder, I need it. So I'm going to go back in here into routes. This is on the server side now, right? And we're going to put in a new file called to-dos. I'm not sure if it's to-dos or to-do. Huh? Yeah, I'm just wondering if how I did it originally. So I don't want to go too crazy with this kind of stuff. Because there's a whole pile of extra information that I put in here, and I want to make sure I don't miss something for you guys, because otherwise you're gonna have problems. The controllers, make sure, yeah. Just organization here. To do routes, to do services. My boot.js, I did all that. Lots of changes. Okay, so in my to-dos, my routes, this is where my routing for my to-dos is going to happen, right? Now, if I was to do routing with this, and if you look at my model, I'll take a look at my, just as a quick snippet, just to make sure, because I didn't write it in, which means if I didn't write it in, I may not need this piece. I don't want to confuse you guys, because there's a lot of little moving parts in this one, right? I called this thing on my auth to do. So let me just take a look at the model for a second. And in my auth to do, I have in my server, notice I have routes and I have a to-dos, right? In my to-do route. Now, I'm going to use a code snippet. Instead of me typing all this route in, I'm going to code snippet the route in. I'm going to give it to you, right? So what's the route for my to-dos? I'm going to kind of go in here and open it up with my text wrangler, right? And if you notice, the to-do route uses Express and Passport and my router. And what it's going to do is it's going to look into models to-do.js, just like we normally would do it. But here's the difference between my to-dos. I'm just going to copy this and then I'll talk about it because it's a little bit small, right? Let's make sure it's the right thing. Notice how it has a response that has a JSON response as opposed to a URL. Because remember what I said, the way to do this thing, to connect Express to Angular on the front end, is to use Express as an API, right? And to use Angular as something that's going to consume the API, right? Angular is going to use a service to consume the Express API. And for us to do that, we have to kind of pipe out JSON, right? So instead of me typing all this out, because I'm not going to have time to do it all, I'm just going to copy this whole piece in here. And as a code snippet, I'm going to go back into this and paste it in so you have it. And I'm going to send it up to GitHub for you guys. Right? So I'm going to go back into, save this piece. I'm going to go back into GitHub. I'm going to put this up. And I'm going to say added to-do route. To-do's route. And that's going to send that up. And one last check that I want to make sure I'm on the right track, right, is I also want to check to see that my app.js is correct. Because if that's not correct, and this is the main one, the app.js is running on the server side, all right, not that the app.js is running on the public side. And some people, because they get confused on the public side, they rename app.js application.js or something else because it's confusing to them. But there are two. One that's on the server side to run the server, the Express app, and the other one that's going to run the Angular app for the to-do. You could also call it to-do.js, whatever you want, something that makes sense to you. So let's check this out. I want to see this in my my code snippets and text wrangler here, just to make sure that I've got everything. So I did add a couple things. I added the root, so I needed that piece. The root has to be in there with to-dos, right? I also have to have this piece in here, this to-dos, right, root, which I don't have right now. If I don't have, there's two pieces to routing, right? One piece is the path to where the route is. The other piece is when I put to-dos in, where to go, right? So I need this piece here. So I'm going to copy this piece. I'm going to my app.js, which is the app.js that's inside on my server side again, just to be clear. And underneath where it says this piece here, where app use routes and users, I'm going to add in my to-dos. Now my server-side stuff is done, right? I don't have to worry about my server-side stuff. I need that server-side routing, though, or else I won't be able to give a REST API. And let's take a look at that route just one more time because I kind of showed it really quickly, but I want to explain it to you guys. So here's my to-do.js routing. So I still ask for Express and Passport because I want to make sure that we're logged in. I don't want you to go there without the passport, right? Here's my router, right, to check the route. And now I have the same method that I used last time, this little utility function, right, to check to see if you're logged in, right? I've added it in here as well, right? So I say this: if I go to my /, which is my index, it's going to be my new index path for my route. What I want to say, so if I put to-dos in there, for whatever reason, right, this to-dos route is going to return JSON, right? It's gonna post JSON data to my console or to whatever application is calling it. Right? The only way I can get it is if I'm authenticated. So I won't be able to get that data unless I'm logged in.